Hello, how are you doing? My name is Otto and welcome back to the channel. The DJI OM6 is a very popular device and it has been my go-to gimbal when I need to make videos with my smartphone. But in the last month, we have seen the arrival of two new gimbals with great features. The new Insta360 Flow and this other one is the Hohem iSteady M6. And I already made a video review for each of these gimbals and one comparing the DJI OM6 with the Hohem M6. So in this non-sponsored video, I want to compare the new Insta360 Flow with the DJI OM6. I think that it's important to mention that I did use an Android device and also an iPhone to test these gimbals. And well, there are some limitations that you need to be aware of if you have an Android device. These two gimbals are lightweight and very compact, especially when you fold them down. The OM6 is a bit taller and thinner on the lower half, but if you take the tripod with you, it's going to take more space inside your backpack. This gimbal has a weight of 410 grams, and without the tripod, it's only 340 grams. The Insta360 Flow has a weight of 400 grams, and you probably won't need to carry a tripod because this gimbal already has one that is built in at the bottom. In terms of payload, they're quite similar. The Insta360 Flow will support the smartphones up to 300 grams and the OM6 up to 290 grams. Setting up and balancing these gimbals is quite easy. DJI was the only gimbal company to have a magnetic clamp, but Insta360 chose to follow this and I can't be happier since this is something that I do like to have on a gimbal. You just have to place the clamp in the middle of the phone, and when you need to use the gimbal, you just place the phone like this. The Insta360 Flow has a bigger range of movement when you are panning. To the right side, they are going to be the same, but panning to the left, the Insta360 will go all the way around to 180 degrees, and this is a big advantage for some videos or, for example, when you need to track someone or even yourself. The tilt on these two gimbals is very similar, which has a more limited range of movement, but this is more related to the design of the gimbals than anything else. Both gimbals have a built-in extension rod that extends an extra 21.5 centimeters, and you can adjust the angle at the top. This is great to use if you need some extra height, but the stabilization might be affected depending on what you're doing because there is going to be a shift in the center of gravity. But having an extension rod can be useful for vlogging style shots, group shots, and so on. I like how the OM6 feels when I'm using it more than the Insta360, and this is because the OM6 has a design that is more ergonomic, and believe me, you will feel a big difference after a few minutes. The handle on the Insta360 Flow is too short, so at the bottom there is a retractable grip, but this doesn't lock into position, so any kind of pressure will push it back, and this is quite annoying to be honest. The grip can also be extended to become a tripod, which is a great idea so you don't have to carry around more equipment like with other gimbals. So you need to extend each of the legs, but they're not going to be good enough for every situation as they're not rigid enough, and it makes the gimbal wobble quite a bit. And Insta360 does not recommend to use this tripod in the sand, and I feel that this is to avoid jamming the retractable system. The tripod on the OM6 is quite solid and the gimbal doesn't move as much as the Insta360 Flow, so it feels safer to use, for example, if you're outdoors. Fortunately, there is a 1/4-inch thread hole at the bottom of the Insta360 Flow, so you can use a tripod of your choice, and believe it or not, it absolutely changes how the gimbal feels. There is also a big difference in battery life. The OM6 will run for almost 7 hours, and the battery on the Insta360 Flow will run for almost 12 hours. You can also use this gimbal as a power bank to charge your smartphone with a USB-C cable. And DJI used to have this feature on their gimbals, but not anymore. The DJI OM6 has a wheel on the side that will let you zoom in or zoom out, but this can also be used to focus manually. It works great on both iPhones and Android devices, and it is a very nice feature to have. The Flow also has a wheel in the middle to zoom in and out, but it will not let you focus manually. Both gimbals have a trigger that will let you start or stop tracking, recenter the camera, or flip the camera around. We also have a joystick on both devices, but Insta360 chose to have a simple click-style joystick, so when you move it to either direction, it's just going to be a simple movement at the speed that you set inside the settings. The OM6 has a more professional joystick that is sensitive to how much you push it. So the movement of the phone is proportional to the force that you apply to the joystick. Another downside with the joystick on the Insta360 is that it is not omnidirectional. So instead of being able to move in different directions, it will only move up, down, left, or right. The joystick on the OM6 is omnidirectional, so you will be able to move the phone in any direction that you want. On the control panel of the Insta360, we have 4 light indicators at the top that will let you know the gimbal mode that you're using. But those initials or markings are a bit too tiny in my opinion. These lights will also let you know what the battery level is if you press the power button once. The OM6 does have a screen-style display that will quickly let you know the status of the gimbal as well as the battery level without the need to press any buttons. And there is also a big icon that represents the gimbal mode. It's nice to have it this way, but I see some users having trouble remembering what the icon stands for. The good thing is that changing gimbal modes can be done without using the app on both gimbals. The black area on the Insta360 is touch sensitive, and using your finger in a semicircle movement will let you change the gimbal mode to the next one or the previous one. For some people, this might get a bit complicated, and if that's the case, you can change this in the settings to use these 2 buttons instead. The OM6 has a simple and more direct way of changing the gimbal mode by pressing the M button once to go to the next mode, and I find this to be more straightforward. Both gimbals do have these other modes available. Under-slung mode works without issues, and this will let you take low-angle shots, and the extension rod makes this easier to use. Sport mode will make the gimbals react faster to your movements when you need to capture fast-moving subjects, and these gimbals can also do inception mode. This will make the smartphone spin around clockwise or counterclockwise, and they will only spin for around 200 degrees, and at that point, the camera will see the arm or the motor of the gimbal. To spin the camera on the OM6, you need to use the joystick, and on the Insta360 Flow, you need to use the zoom-in ring. So if you want to do a spin shot and zoom in or out at the same time, it's only going to be possible with the OM6. These 2 gimbals do a fantastic job making your videos more stable. The ones that you're seeing right now don't have any post-stabilization applied to them. The app that you have to use for both gimbals are very easy to use. The interface looks very clear and multiple settings can be customized without breaking your head. But the Insta360 app does offer a few things that the OM6 doesn't have. For example, you can activate a histogram. Users that like to vlog will be happy to know that you can flip to the front or back camera when you're filming. Panorama shots have a new 360 sphere shot, and Insta360 added this new widescreen mode to make your videos look more cinematic so you don't have to work on them on post. The best part of the Insta360 app is perhaps the tracking feature that it has. It is fast, very sticky, and it works really good on iPhone and on Android devices. If the person is lost, the app will wait for that person to come back into the frame, and when this happens, the gimbal will keep tracking him or her. If someone different pops into the frame, the gimbal will not track this other person, and this means that the app can actually recognize the original subject that it was tracking in the first place. On the OM6, The tracking is also very sticky and it does a great job on iPhones and Android devices. You can even turn around and the tracking will go on, but most of the time, if the subject is lost, it's not so easy for the app to reacquire the subject, and the app will not recognize the original person as the Insta360 does. On both apps, if you have an iPhone, you will be able to shoot at 4K up to 60 frames per second. And you can also select manual mode where you can change the ISO and the shutter speed. The white balance can be changed if you are on manual mode, but not if you're using automatic settings, which is kinda odd in my opinion. If you have an Android device, you will not get the option to make videos at 60 frames per second on neither gimbal. There is also no manual settings, and the only setting that you can change is the white balance. You also don't get the slow motion, but on the Insta360 Flow, you can shoot videos at 24 or 30 frames per second, and the OM6 will only support 30 frames per second. You also need to know that the selfie camera doesn't support 4K, so it's only 1080p on either smartphone. The DJI OM6 and the Insta360 Flow do have the same retail price of $159. Please let me know which gimbal do you like the most, and if you plan to buy one of these, using the links down below will help support this channel. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye.